Batman v Superman, Man of Steel, and Suicide Squad. I was on Screen Rant giving my comments, and one guy, he said that the DCU trilogy, the three movies of the DCU, is like the modern Transformers, and Suicide Squad is like Transformers of 2016. Another guy said, no, Transformers makes $1 billion. These films are not even like Transformers, maybe Transformer like. And I thought, you know what, let me make a video on this real quick. If you look at Metacritic right now, you're looking at Man of Steel. Man of Steel, yes, critically speaking, with 47 critics, it has mixed reviews, right? Metacritic orange is mixed. But the audience reception of Man of Steel was totally different to the critics. There was just a huge difference. And you can see it was a good user rating. And the user reviews were also rather positive. But look how many ratings for the users here. 3,184 ratings, folks. If I was to go into the ratings just to show you something, if I was just to go into the ratings alone, 2,292 of them were positive. All right, not even 1,000 is mixed and negative. Look at that. Okay. All right, let's look at the first Transformers movie. Here it is, Transformers. The first Transformers movie is Transformers. Okay, got a 6.9 rating. 1,157 ratings. Right. You had 745 and roughly about 400. Okay, 400 which were mixed and negative, which is more than half the positive. Okay, see, Batman v Superman, or Man of Steel, sorry, totally different picture. Okay, now Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, again a mixed rating, Metascore, but again the audience reception 6.9. That's like the first Transformers movie, right? But look how many ratings. 5,086. 5,086. How many people had positive ratings? Look at this. 3,287. Okay? We had half of them, a little more than half of them, which were mixed and negative. Okay? Alright? First Transformer movie, we had 1,436. I'm sorry, that's not the first one. We had 745. More than half of them were mixed or negative. Okay. All right, let's go. Let's move on. So we have the second one, which is Batman v Superman. 6.9. Okay. A little more than half of them negative. Okay, that's like the first Transformer movie. Second Transformer movie, 42, mixed. The user score is mixed. Look how many ratings, 969. It doesn't even have the same amount of ratings. Just imagine if everybody had rated Transformers, what it would be. Think about that. The people who actually commented and rated on it were trying to do a positive rating, obviously. But look at this. I'll show you something. 433 of these ratings were positive. But when you add these two together, more than the positive were mixed or negative. Okay? So this had a mixed user score. Okay? Batman v Superman had a good user score. Let's continue. Suicide Squad, 6.6. It's a good user score. 2,270 ratings. So that tells you the interest in the movie. Okay? Tells you the interest. It had 1,353 people who actually enjoyed this movie. And again, about 900 of them found it mixed or negative, which is a little bit more than half. All right? Third Transformer movie, Dark of the Moon. Okay? First one was Transformers. Second one was Revenge of the Fallen. Right? Now here we are with Dark of the Moon. Okay? By the way, the second one critically bombed, right? Critically bombed. They didn't like it. and the user and the reviews for this were mixed. Okay, much more than half, much more than sorry, the amount that liked it found it mixed or didn't like it. Okay, more, 5.4. Now, yes, Revenge of the Fallen, which was the third one, again, more than the amount mixed. Okay, this is the users. All right, let's go to the last one. They are the fourth one. Fourth one, hated again, and look at the reviews. Look at the ratings. Mixed. Only 924 ratings. Okay. What this shows me is two things. One, the interest in the movie. Okay. Transformers made $1 billion or whatever, but you got to understand the people actually write these reviews are not children. They're adults. The thing about the Transformers series is little children. It's a family movie. It's like The Secret Life of Pets or any Disney film. Little children can go watch this film. And what you will find is that little children, 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 5-year-olds, they'll all enjoy this movie. And some teens. And those are people who don't write reviews. They don't rate movies. So you find that the ratings here are going to be, for the Transformers series, they're going to be mixed to negative. All right? But because the children, because it's a family movie and the whole family goes out and you have to buy a whole set of tickets, it made $1 billion. Okay? That's what people are not factoring in. Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad is not really a family movie. It's a movie targeting college students, high school students, and maybe young people who are working. All right, there's a particular demographic for Suicide Squad. It's specific to people ages 12 years old all the way up to 25, 26 years of age. I enjoyed it. If you're someone who enjoys a flick, or you're a comic book person, or you like action movies, or you like summer blockbusters, you go see this movie. Okay? Look how many people responded. Every single DCEU film has done better in terms of response, people writing reviews, and the amount of people interested in the movies. Now we're going to see some real facts again. We're going to look now at Rotten Tomatoes. Here's what's happening on Rotten Tomatoes. Mixed review for Man of Steel by the critics. The audience liked it, 75%. Batman v Superman. Critics hated it, audience liked it, 65%. Suicide Squad. Critics hated it, audience liked it more, 68%. Even more than Batman v Superman. Okay? Let's look at Transformers. Transformers, first one. Critics hated it. Audience liked it, 86%. They liked it even more than Man of Steel. Second movie. Critics hated it. Audience hated it. Now, how's that possible? Audience hated it. Let's go on. Critics hated it. Audience hated it. Last one. The last Transformers movie. Critics hated it. Audience hated it. What does this tell you? What does this tell you? Now, let's look at the numbers. These are the user ratings for the last Transformers movie. User ratings before that, a little bit more. User ratings for it. 4 million people had went to check out Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. That's how much interest was in the second Transformers movie. Because the first Transformers movie, a lot of people were hyped about it, and a lot of people were interested in it. So it doubled when the second Transformers movie came. Because movies are driven by the audience. The audience really lapped up the first Transformers movie. So the second one, they were really interested in it, and you see how much people took their time to rate it. But by the third one, everything drops. And it's been dropping. All right, let's look at Man of Steel. Man of Steel didn't even get that kind of user rating, or the amount of people that came out to see that movie. Only 443,000. Okay? Batman v Superman, even less. Look at that. Suicide Squad, even less. Okay? Now look at that. Look at those trends. Bear that in mind. Transformers was huge. Look at that. 2 million people rated this movie. Then 4 million, it doubled. 4 million people were interested in Transformers. The franchise itself was a signature thing. Not even the interest, not even Batman v Superman captured that interest. Not even Man of Steel captured that interest. But then it dropped significantly. And even when it's dropped significantly, it's still higher numbers than even Batman v Superman. Look at that. Just barely higher than the last Transformer movie. Now, why is that so? Well, apparently people were really stimulated and interested since the first Transformer movie, which was really, really good. And even though critics did not like the first Transformer movie, the audience lapped it up. And since that time, Transformers has been going, but the audience has constantly been disappointed by the Transformer movies, as is shown by the ratings. The audience didn't like it, didn't like it, didn't like it, didn't like it. When we look at Metacritic, mixed reviews, mixed reviews, mixed reviews, mixed reviews, and it keeps on dropping, right? Now, while we see in the DCEU, we see reviews, and they are good reviews, right? We also see them dropping. So we're going to see how these two franchises, Transformers and even the DCEU, will pan out in the end. But what I can tell you is the difference between Transformers and DCEU is the DCEU, while Superman is he's a signature comic book hero, and Batman v Superman were two signature comic book heroes coming together. Suicide Squad didn't have no signature comic book heroes. All right? There's no big name person in that movie. People probably, okay, you could say some people were coming for the Joker, but the Joker wasn't in the movie much. So after the movie is shown, there comes a time when word of mouth starts to kick in. And this movie, people started to enjoy it because of the characters in the movie itself. And it's interesting, these characters are not well known. Deadshot was one of the characters most people like. Most people like Harley Quinn. Most people like Diablo. Most people like Amanda Waller. Right? Some people, we have a fan base for Killer Croc. Some people, we have a fan base for Captain Boomerang. Because all the characters in the movie were interesting. Though the bulk of people had never seen them before. And my point is this. Transformers, it's a franchise. The Transformers, Optimus Prime, and they are well known now. When it first came out, it was big. It was a big blockbuster because people had never seen the Transformers come onto the screen. I wanted to see it because I was always fascinated by their ability to transform. That's what's the fun part about Transformers, right? And it's something you can't get over. And that's what Michael Bay has been just killing it. He's been killing it on that because that's the thing that captures people. More than likely, it's not going to capture people as much the next Transformer movie. Now, my point anyway is this. Michael Bay tapped into a franchise. Here, the DCEU is not tapping into a franchise. They're telling stories. But they're telling stories, some people say they tell stories like comic book movies, like a real comic book and you're turning the pages of a comic book. It's kind of like that. Okay, maybe. But my point is they're telling stories in an unconventional way in a real world setting so that sometimes people they're saying that the DCU doesn't have a style. The DCU has a style. The problem is you're not accustomed to that style. Mm-hmm. You're not accustomed seeing the DC, any comic book movie ever presented this way. And so a lot of people, especially the critics, they can't seem to make sense of it because it seems to defy some of the laws and rules that they know for how movies are made. But because most of these critics have never made a movie in their life, they don't know that certain rules can be broken and a story can be told various ways. And once you keep certain basic paradigms constant, the story can be told. And people get it. People would not have repeat viewings of Suicide Squad if it wasn't good and it wasn't follow-up. Okay? And it's not just because of fans. Fans can drive a movie success only so far. It has to be good word of mouth of the movie. And the fact that Suicide Squad is doing so well at the box office is only testament to the fact that Suicide Squad is a good movie. That's why people want other people to see it and invite other people to go see the movie. Right? And my job is just to simply debunk sometimes rumors and lies out there. I debunk these things. It's not because I'm a fanboy or anything. I like good movies as well. I like a movie that has something in it for me. Okay? Suicide Squad had something in it for me. It told me that even villains should be treated as people. And usually a villain may have a broken past or hurt, and they have their own particular way of coping with that. And this group of villains found a way to bond with one another. I may not agree with their morals, but the fact that they had common ground with each other, even though they may cutthroat each other later down in the future, the fact that they had common ground with each other, even though their motivations may have been selfish even, they showed that they could accomplish a good and even see villains worse than themselves and be looking at those villains like, you're worse than me. Even though I'm sure they're going to work along with Enchantress somewhere down the road. This is really funny because Enchantress was a member of the Suicide Squad. But anyway, that you could look at them and say, no, you are really evil. That's funny. To hear a villain tell another villain that they're really evil is really funny. Okay? So, yeah, I thought that it is not just the concept of villains that makes it interesting, but just seeing the dynamic, how villains interact with one another. And it reminds me of gangs, how a gang behaves, how people get into a gang, how they get empathy. And I thought that was pretty interesting and also very revealing the psychology, the mindset of a villain. And I think this movie was different in that respect. And to hear people say it's weird or awkward was really strange because I think people have an expectation for heroes. And apparently they thought this movie was about heroes. There's not one single hero featured in this movie. Every single person, Colonel Rick Flag, Amanda Waller. Okay, Katana is a hero. She's a hero. She's probably the only hero in there. But almost every character in this movie has done something bad. The only person who hasn't done something bad in this movie is Katana. She didn't do anything bad. She really had the honorable high ground. She stood on the side, sort of like. But it's just very interesting how people actually thought that these characters were heroes because they had attached themselves so much to the characters. They thought Deadshot was an honorable guy. He's not an honorable guy. He's okay. He has a certain degree. He has a code of some kind, but he's not an honorable guy. He takes money to kill people. He does not care about life. Okay? But to hear Deadshot say that the main villain was, you're really evil, it's really funny to hear. And it's the fact that people actually believe that these guys actually turn into heroes in some sort of way in the movies is also very funny. Yeah, they did something good, don't get me wrong. And because of their bond with one another, they look out for each other. But at the end of the day, they're villains. So I thought there was a beautiful job that David Ayer did in having us actually empathize with villains. I thought also that Zack Snyder did an excellent job with General Zod, making us identify with him and relate with him. And I thought he went the other way with Lex Luthor in that he made us have to guess, where is Lex Luthor coming from? Where is he at? What is his angle? Because almost everything Lex Luthor says is deceptive and a lie. And he's constantly contradicting himself almost, it seems. I thought they did a great job of making Lex Luthor sort of elusive from our minds. Yet we know he hates Superman. And honestly speaking, he just does not like Superman's existence. He doesn't like him. He doesn't like that Superman is powerful. He does not like that Superman is good. He doesn't like anything about Superman. So we get it. But I thought that all these different movies in the DCU have interesting villains. They have interesting um, just the way how a villain can be used in a movie is just it's revolutionary, to say the least. Um, and each of the movies, Man of Steel went into the psychology of Superman, how he had to adjust to certain things growing up, and how he matured into the Superman. He wasn't just born like that, and the world wasn't one that was just accepting of him just like that. And even it expanded further in Batman v Superman. It was wonderful how that was, elaborated on. I could go on and on about the DCEU and what it is doing and the potential it has for the future. And I know there's a huge fan base out there for the DCEU. We got people who will support it regardless. But I also know that it also is dependent on people who are not DCEU fans to actually bring in that revenue that is necessary. And it wasn't their excellent advertising campaign that made Suicide Squad a success, because it had legs, which tells me, and they weren't advertising, they haven't been advertising Suicide Squad for the longest while now. So its legs are now going because of word of mouth. So it tells me that Suicide Squad shows you that it had to be a solid film. These films are not Transformer films. They're not films without character. They're not films without plot and story. Okay, Suicide Squad doesn't have much of a plot and story. Okay, I got that one. That's character based. But I'm talking about Batman v Superman has a great plot, great story, great villain. With Man of Steel, General Zod was an excellent villain, much more laid out, much more elaborate than the General Zod from the early Christopher Reeves version, was just straightforward, straight cut, comical kind of character. So I'm just saying that I love what the DCU is doing. They're so much more elaborate. I heard somebody say that Suicide Squad is like the Batman and Robin of the DCEU for 2016. I'm like, that is such sacrilege. Batman and Robin it was very unrelatable because, again, it was designed for kids. It was kind of designed for little children, merchandising for little children, sort of like a Transformers movie. It backfired royally because the parents were just outraged at what Schumacher did with the characters. Didn't like it at all. When it comes to Suicide Squad, this is it's much more clever. It's not a comedy kind of thing. Schumacher, I guess he was going for something to do with like Adam West Batman, but he didn't have the wackiness, he didn't have the funkiness. The characters were too serious, and it's like he was trying to make a serious movie, but he was trying to make a spoof at the same time. And I think what made that movie a bomb, and by the way, it was a box office flop. I mean, literally people did not like the movie. Nobody went to see it. That's how bad it was. But what made that movie such a repugnant movie? I remember watching it. I was a kid and I didn't like it. And that's to tell you how bad it was. I don't even remember it. I don't like remembering it. I actually didn't like the Val Kilmer Batman Forever either. I didn't like, to be honest with you, I'm going to be very honest with you. I didn't like any of Schumacher's Batman iterations. None of them. I didn't like Val Kilmer as Batman. I just didn't like it. He didn't feel like Batman. He tried to talk like Batman. I just didn't like it. He didn't even seem like a good Bruce Wayne. George Clooney didn't seem like a good Bruce Wayne. He was too ridiculous. It was a ridiculous movie. Batman and Robin was a ridiculous movie. And for those people who are diehard DC fans who want to defend that, I can't defend it. I just can't. It was a bad movie. I can tell you when something's a bad movie, and that was a bad movie, okay? And then Batman Forever, I got the kind of storyline, but it wasn't Jim Carrey's Riddler. He did a pretty decent job at the Riddler. It was the Harvey Dent. I just didn't like it. It was just too over the top, flamboyant. That was a flamboyant acting, not what Lex Luthor did. That was flamboyant acting. And then the problem with Harvey Dent was that he wasn't menacing enough that even if you go to do this over the top thing, you have to be menacing. You know how Lex Luthor killed people and people died? You can then be flamboyant because you also do some very terrible things. So I didn't feel that with Harvey Dent. And the Riddler never did anything much. There was a certain scene though where the Riddler really did look spooky. He did. He scared the daylights out of me for a minute. With his long, withdrawn face, he almost looked like he was demon possessed. But for the most part, I just don't like. I don't like the Schumacher movies. I don't know what anybody else could say, but I just didn't like them. Okay, that's just what it is. Forced humor to me. So this movie is nothing like that. Suicide Squad is nothing like that. It's very organic in terms of the interactions with the characters with each other. Dick Tracy, if you guys remember, Dick Tracy was a pretty decent movie, and I don't know if Rich Schumacher was trying to capture Dick Tracy, but some of the stupid things that he did in the movie really messed it up. You know, Dick Tracy was still serious, even though it was kind of very colorful, and the villainous characters were villainous. You know, people were dying in Dick Tracy. That's what you have to have, some kind of risk or tension. Suicide Squad has the risk and tension in that Colonel Rick Flag is constantly being abducted by these things. They're killing some of his men. Some of his men got converted to them. You know, there's a tension. They crash the helicopter. They don't die. All these little tension things. Amanda Waller gets kidnapped. You don't get that in Batman and Robin. There's just none of that kind of stuff going on. And it's just, it's a totally higher standard movie to Batman and Robin. So to tell me that's the Batman and Robin of 2016, it's just terrible. Ben-Hur is like, to me, Ben-Hur is like the box office flop, like what do you call the thing? Fantastic Four. That's like a box office flop. Okay, Fantastic Four wasn't that bad a movie. It was just kind of graphically violent and stuff like that. It started off kind of being like a Disney Marvel movie, and then it just got bloody, right? And that's the thing. And in the end, a lot of disaster and stuff happened in the end. But Fantastic Four, you know, box office flop for a reason, I guess. This movie was not that. This movie wasn't Fantastic Four. This movie wasn't Ben-Hur. This movie wasn't, as I said before, this movie is more like Captain America Civil War. It's pretty much the same kind of movie. There's a certain level of seriousness to it. There's a tone of seriousness. It's more of an adventure flick, action, character-driven movie, like Civil War. That's what Civil War is. It has a different style to Civil War. It has a different style to Guardians of the Galaxy. It's more rough. It's more uncut. It's more rugged. It's more unpredictable. It's a villain movie. So, yeah, obviously the story's going to be told in a villainous kind of way. So, you know, that's what I liked about the movie. Anyway, so that's my rundown on it. I think it was a little bit lengthy, but I don't care. You guys have a great one.